Okay, well, okay, I see the live. All right, wonderful. We are live. All right, welcome folks to the first meeting of the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs. This is our 78th biennial session, the General Assembly, episode 1 for our committee on YouTube. And so what I want to do here first is just take a few minutes to go around the table. My goal for the next half hour is to just do some light introductions for ourselves, sort of where we come from, what areas we represent, maybe a quick snapshot on what got you motivated to run for a representative role in your community. And then I want to talk a little bit about individual policy desires and priorities so we can start shaping our committee's agenda for the session. With that, I guess I'll start. Representative Matt Barong, Addison 3. I represent Ferrisburg, Virgins, Canton, Waltham, Addison, and about 1/3 of New Haven. Going into my 4th term as my 2nd term in this committee, 1st term as chair. And I guess what got me into this, I was working in and around some small business associations with policy development that wound up obviously guiding me up to this building. And also my former seatmate, Representative Lanfer. I'm a career restaurant hospitality guy. She used to take meetings at my cafe. So I started poking at her, asking questions. And next thing I knew, I had lawn signs. So that's for the quick snapshot on me. Careful who you talk to. Careful with suggestions you make. So all joking aside, no, it's been an incredible honor to serve in this building. My first 2 terms were on House General. And that was when it had the military affairs portfolio that came down here last biennium. When I came down here, as well as Representative Hango. I don't want to steal any of your thunder. But real quick, that's the snapshot on me. We're going to have tons of time to get to know each other over the course of the next several months. And with that, I will hand off to our esteemed vice chair.
Thank you. Representative Lisa Hango. I represent Franklin 5, which is Richford, Berkshire, Franklin, and Highgate, all along the northern border on the western northern border of the state. I live a mile from the Canadian border, so there's tons of snow there right now, and you can't live there without loving to do stuff in the snow. So looking forward to that this weekend. I also served with Representative Barong on the House General Committee when I first came in, same biennium as Representative Barong, but I was appointed 6 weeks into the session. So had to hit the ground running with no orientation or anything. So still learning. Came down here to this committee for the military affairs piece, and I'm really glad that I got here and I'm able to work with Rep. Barong again in this leadership role. And what brought me to this, what brought me to my appointment, I was one of those, I guess you could call stay-at-home moms who volunteered for everything. And I raised 4 kids and was on pretty much every committee that needed somebody. I've served on the school board for the last 14 years. I'm still on my local school board and just kind of was that community activist when something needed to get done. People came to me and I tried to get it organized. Hopefully my organizational skills will come in handy here. I'm also the co-chair of the Rural Caucus and co-chair of the National Guard and Veterans Affairs Caucus. Sad to lose my co-chair off the National Guard Caucus, but he's got lots of responsibility now. So we'll move forward and stay tuned for that later this month.
Representative Lucy Boyden. I represent Memorial 3, which is Cambridge and Waterville. This is my 2nd term, and I previously was here on government operations and military affairs. what brought me here was a legislative cage and then also a legislative intern on the House Agriculture Committee through high school and into college. So was very much immersed into the legislative process from a young age, and carried that through academically throughout college. And decided to run. I have deep roots in Cambridge and have worked on my family's farm and various other farms in the area. I'm very passionate about supporting our rural communities at the municipal level, but also at the state level. Career-wise, I worked in project management and also marketing. And I also participate on the rural caucus.
I'm Sandy Pincenot. I'm newly represented for Bennington Rutland, which is Dorset, Danby, Mount Tabor, Peru, and Landgrove. I got into my public service career back in the 90s when 60 came on. I was on the school board for 8 years and went through those turmoils. I've been a town clerk since 1998 and in my current town of Dorset since 2005. I will be retiring in that position in December. My husband was a 30-year veteran with the Army Reserve Unit out of Rutland, and he passed away in April of 2023 due to toxic burn exposure. And so when he was in the service and serving his country, I was the family readiness coordinator for all of the families. So I was very active and made a decision early on in our career. Well, I call it our careers because I was involved from day one. I was always at the Reserve Center before family readiness became an active thing, helping to serve breakfast and volunteering for the different holidays for the families and stuff. So I've always been involved. I currently serve on the Board of Trustees for the Vermont Veterans Home. And 2 years ago, my constituents came to me and said, we need you to run for House. At that time, it was Linda Joy Sullivan was retiring, and I couldn't because of Dan's illness at the time. And then decided I was going to retire. And then this past October, they came to, or a year ago, October, came to me again and said, now's the time, you got to do it. And I really thought I was just going to retire and go visit my daughter in North Carolina in the winter. But then I really gave it some hard thought. And if somebody doesn't come up here and represent both the clerk world and the military world, then who else is going to do it? So that's what brought me here. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to serving. And I've just been asked to serve as the clerk of the Veterans Caucus. So I guess that's what I'll be next.
Awesome. All right, yeah, Representative Michael Morgan, third term. I live in the town of Milton, but I represent 6 towns, probably one of the geographically biggest districts. It's town, all the Grand Isle County towns of Alberg, Islamont, North Darrow, Grand Isle, South Darrow, and the northwest corner of Milton where I reside. Background, I've collectively done, I think I'm on my 16th or 17th year as a selectman in the town of Milton. I did 2 stints. I did 9 years back in the 80s and 90s, and now back on for another 7 years and running. And I'm the vice chair there, so I have that local politics connection or nexus. Also a 38-year retiree from the active duty Air Force and Air National Guard. And highest position I held there was a vice commander of the unit, the number 2 person in the 1,100 person wing there. And let's see, I'm a member of the National Guard caucus with Lisa and Matt. Matt's stuck away, obviously, but you know, looks like we're going to change, so that's good. And only other thing I'd add is my hat's off to people like Sandy that have that lived experience of a significant other of a military member, because I think, and you would probably agree with this, when we deploy or go overseas or do other things, they're the people that, excuse me, hold down the fort and do the heavy lifting and the lion's share of the work to keep the fires burning, so to speak. I give you a lot of credit and am humbled by what you've had to deal with and the sacrifice that your family made. So I'm not trying to grandstand that. I just think that's.
Sounds like you
worthy
might
of-
be though.
I'm sorry,
You're not
a
grandstanding.
little bit. It's okay.
I agree with you.
But
It's gonna be fascinating.
absolutely.
It's gonna be so.
And at one point, at some point, maybe with this individual's permission, we actually have in our body now, a Gold Star family member in our midst.
Really? Who's that? Or is it?
I'm not going to say without their permission.
Oh, I understand.
Eventually, maybe
You can say,
we can. You think so?
sure.
You think he'd be okay with that?
I haven't looked into it, but I know I qualify.
Oh, you do, yes. You do as well. No, I mean another.
Oh.
I guess another. No, I'm sorry. No, you would. Yes, yes.
So for us, would you define Gold Star?
So a member that is either has deceased in battle or with a service connection, I believe also counts as, because you're saying yes.
Mhm.
I always thought it did, but
Yeah.
she would know.
Yeah.
So, yes. I'm sorry.
Goes out pretty far.
Yeah,
We'll check in with that other member. Be curious.
I will, because it's just noteworthy. And again, am I a little bit prejudiced in that world? Of course, but
Oh, you mean a member of our house? I
yeah.
thought you meant the committee, yes.
Nope, another member of the house. Anyway, I'll show up.
Thank you.
Thank you, member. Representative Hooper.
Enough.
Yes.
The first of the Representative Hoopers, I'm from the new north end of Burlington, just I usually say damn near Colchester, but I won't say that here. This is my 7th year. I've served on this committee my entire legislative career, if you can call this a career. I'm one of the veterans that sits on this committee, and also in the body. I was a little disturbed last year that so many vets either didn't come back or elected not to come back. It turns out, I think we've bolstered the ranks.
I believe so.
significantly.
Both chambers.
New crop of people coming in.
Mhm.
So maybe veterans issues will move forward. As with my counterpart here, I also serve on the board of the Veterans Home. Have experience on the Burlington School Board. Have been the president of the State Employees Union for 5 terms, and now I'm a president emeritus, and I'm very active in the Chittenden County Democratic Party. Other than that,
Life is quiet.
life is quiet. I just yearn for votes. Sir. All right.
Representing us in Chittenden there.
Representative BL Coppin. I represent Cavendish, Baltimore, and Weathersfield. This is my first time in any elected office. I've never served on a school board, select board, any other board. I am retired out of the Vermont Guard since 2017. Several things made me choose to run, because I've always stayed out of politics, but with affordability issues for the state, but also with seeing so many veterans struggle to get through the VA process. I've tried to help others get through. I've lost soldiers because of their struggles with PTSD, where they lost that fight. I'm fortunate enough to have gotten very good help. So I'm still here today. And moreover, just to help support the people of this state, veterans included, and that's why I ran, to step back up to serve this state again.
Welcome.
I'm Representative Mary Catherine Stone. This is my 2nd term. I represent Burlington. I'm a healthcare worker, so when I'm not here, I'm wearing scrubs. I work as an occupational therapist at University of Vermont Medical Center. That's why I ran, because you get to hear and see a lot when you're a healthcare worker. People can't really hide who they are. When you say, "How are you?" you can't just get away with saying fine. So I felt like I was just hearing so much. I needed to come to this place because y'all could hear the stories, and then I could bring the people who were telling them with me. And I hope that's what I've done and will continue to do. My connection to this committee, I have taken quite an interest in Veterans Affairs. I come from a military family. My grandmother helped raise me. Something that I don't think I've actually shared with anybody here is my grandmother was one of the first WACs, one of the first women in the Army Corps. all of her brothers were called to serve, and she wrote a letter to the president and said, if they're going, then I want to go too. Find a place for me. And she was one of the very first World War II veterans, and she helped raise me. Her last name was Stone. When I ran for office, I legally changed my name to honor her memory. Yeah, so there's that. And then I'm also married to somebody who is a full-time Air Force man. He's a captain and pilot in the U.S. Air Force Reserve, and then also works full-time with the Air Force. He's actually on active duty orders, got called up this past weekend and will be gone for a while. There's that. And I'm also interested in strengthening our democracy and expanding civic engagement. So I'm really happy to be on this committee and with you all.
And I am super thrilled
I know.
that you are sitting next to me. I am Jay Hooper. I represent the 5 towns of Brookfield, Braintree, Randolph, Granville, and Roxbury. And I want to start with a fact that I'd like to share. This is a true fact. I am, in fact, Representative Morgan, the most veteran member of this committee, despite the fact that I'm not a veteran. I'm in my 5th term.
You're the senior junior Hoover.
Yeah, my father was the chair of the committee in the 80s. He did 4 terms. Ended up being the Secretary of State for just 1 term. He credits the town clerks with giving him the heave-ho. He was too progressive. But that's, I mean, truly, no, that'd be an insult to town clerks. They're not biased, you know, so, yeah, that term. I'm looking forward to working with all you guys.
Kate Nugent, this is my 2nd term. I represent a portion of South Burlington. Before that, I was a justice of the peace for 5 years and a member of my South Burlington Rotary Club, and actually was the president of the Rotary Club the year I started, which was challenging, but I had a lot of help, thankfully. I met my former rep through my work as a JP, helping with elections, and I was really inspired by, passionate to help people vote who needed help, and I think that's partly why we got to know each other. My background as far as career goes is mostly in education and nonprofit management. Managed a nonprofit for 16 years, very small, like most of the nonprofits in Vermont. And I think that's partly what motivated me to run too, is there's a lot of connections between the nonprofit world and state government that I think could be strengthened and made easier so that we can deliver services better. So thank you for listening. I'm excited to be here again.
Mr. Chair, may I say one other thing? Please. Since we are government operations and military affairs, to expand on what you'd asked earlier, Rep. Hooper the Younger, was about the stars. So we talked about Gold Star families, somebody that lost somebody in time of conflict or with a nexus to conflict. That there are Blue Star banners, and Mary Catherine probably, I don't know if you've gotten one, but you should have if you haven't, but they give you what's called, when you have a service member that is deployed or in harm's way, you get a Blue Star banner. Anybody that's seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, Mrs. Ryan in her window, it's a oblong, well, not oblong, it's a rectangular, but lengthwise rectangular fabric, white background, red fringe, and then it has a blue star. And in her case, she had 4 sons that were in the conflict. She had 4 stars, which is probably unprecedented.
Sullivan's.
And so it was pretty significant. And so there's your difference. You have Gold Star families, but they would have started out as Blue Star families, unfortunately became Gold Star families, but, and you'll see plates. Do you have the Gold Star plate?
No, I do not.
Yep, you can get a plate that actually, if you see Gold Star on a Vermont plate, that is a Gold Star family.
Well, of all committees that should have a glossary, I figure.
Yeah, so I've just to give you a little more education on that piece of things. Not, figure it would help for some background for us.
And we have one member absent today. Representative Waters Evans is in Salt Lake City at the NCSL meeting on elections. So she's representing us with that national legislative organization. It's a follow-up to a series of meetings I went to over the summer in Kansas City. So she'll be back, and I'm sure she won't be shy about introducing herself when she returns. And she is the committee's ranking member. So with that, we got a couple of minutes until our first bill introduction. So we could start the conversation around legislative priorities, in it around the work we're going to do over the next couple of months. And then we'll pick up, we'll kind of open up a little bit now until the members who are going to speak to the bill show up. Then we'll pick it up again for lunch with the same conversation. So, Representative.
May I just have you sort of tell us, do you want to be like very much the conduit through which we participate, or is this going to be casual? What's your style for like,
This one, let's just keep it cash. I want it to be conversation.
But you'll let us know if that's different.
I will let you know if you need to pull back on the conversation.
Understood.
Yes.
You get a settled in.
In that case, I'd like to say, I'd like to get some firefighter personnel in here over the course of the session to talk about issues that volunteer firefighters and professionals.
Thank you for bringing that up. I actually have a bill that relates to firefighters, so it will be interesting to hear their perspective.
Because I think that those guys are all going to be very important in terms of climate resiliency. Another thing that we should talk about pretty much every time we talk about any policy. Flooding, fires.
Member from Barry, on cue.
Flooding in the door.
That's actually not where I was going with that. I was talking about, I just clean up the fact that we're gonna cut into the charter in a second. That was not a flood segue.
But on the
Necessary to me.
Please, go.
On the topic of flooding, my area of Cambridge, and adjacently Johnson was very much affected by the 2023 flood. There's so many other areas that were recently affected. Oh, we were also affected in December of 2023. So twice in a
Yeah,
year.
everybody forgets that December.
Yeah, I could. And we did a flood kind of omnibus bill last year. Would be interested in looking back on that and also hearing from our Northeast Kingdom communities and how we can further support and be prepared for future events and how we can just support our rural communities.
And continuing the work on that bill, I mean, as you know, you
Yeah.
worked on that with me. And so that bill was intended to be continued into this session. So we have some light work done on that to pick up where we left off. So that is actually the emergency response to both natural events and human triggered ones for first responders, emergency management, preparation, execution, deployment, et cetera, is going to be a significant component of our work, both this session and next session. So.
Priorities still? Yeah.
One more, then we'll
Yeah,
get.
no mystery when this one comes out of my mouth. Veterans pensions is a passion of mine. I think anybody who was here in the session remembers at 1:15 on the morning of May 11th when each rep, Michael Morgan, got up and gave a 5-page speech on that we were lacking, that there was something the budget was lacking. I'm sure I had some people who were probably not very happy with me that morning, but that's okay. I will shoulder that one for the women and men that served with me. So I was one time asked by somebody that's no longer in this body, what makes you so special? I said, no, I'm not special, but I am unique. And the people that served with me, the men and women that served with me are unique, and what they had to do is unique. And that's another topic for another day, but the bottom line is that what we've asked of those people, I think is significant, and of what we've asked them to do for the country. And as I stated that morning when I gave that speech, the average, and I said the term boy because, and I mean it in a very endearing way, but that took a bullet on D-Day of June 6th of 1944, was 26 years old. So let that sink in. There's nobody in this room except maybe Autumn that is younger than 26 years old. And so that said, I'm not calling us old, Bob, but you know.
Yeah.
That said, I think that, you know, that kind of sets the stage for where I'm getting at is that's those people. Yes, am I part of that group? Sure. I first to admit that I am, but I'm here more for the men and women that served left and right of me. And that I think they've earned and deserved that. And I would hope that at least the majority of us, the petition is already going around for that. And I would hope the majority of us in this committee would see in our hearts to sign on to that. And I told the speaker, when I talked to her about a week and a half ago, that that was a massive priority, and that was no mystery to her, of course. So I'll shut up. Thank you.
And it looks like Representative Hooper, the senior.
I'll add to that in that although I have no issue with the focus on that bill, which is labeled as veterans, but it's actually
Retirees, retired veterans, correct.
I have a focus on looking at the veterans who served their state, their country for 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
Came home, made Vermont a great place to be. Vermont does crap in terms of looking at regular enlisted veterans. If disabled, maybe you're lucky enough to get a meals boost permit.
Right.
Beyond that, it's pretty limited. And that's something that over the course of time has devalued, both from an educational perspective and a service perspective. So although I support the idea of the 4,000 or so retirees being recognized, I also support the idea of 14,000 or so veterans in each state.
About the 4,000 plus, I always look forward to the a lot of people that are getting on the verge of retirement telling me I'm either staying or I'm departing of retention of people. But yes, more popular, valid point. Thanks.
Thank you, gentlemen. No, and I mean, even though I never served in any branch of military, I am the grandson and nephew of combat veterans. My grandfather was a heavily decorated POW in World War II, so it is in my family's lineage. So although I did not participate at any level as you folks, I'm certainly very aware of the weight and gravity. So
Yes.
we have a good
We know you are.
body mass for these priorities in here. So
Yeah, I think I just, you know, not to natter around, but I guess is that because our second half of our title is military affairs, and unfortunately, as we all know, and it's not a knock against anybody in this room, but we did not do much last session in the way of military affairs. And it's not anybody's specific fault in this room, it's just the way it played out.
it's a fresh look by any of them.
Yes.
And I will point out that our committee jurisdiction doesn't necessarily lend us to be the ones that those bills are brought to. For instance, your
Okay.
tax bill will go to Ways and Means. We have a couple of education bills for military members that will go to the Education Committee. So we really just see straight military and veterans affairs that have no other committee jurisdiction. It's a little tricky. I do want to mention that I do not have any military service, but a great respect for everyone who has served. And my father and my uncles were all military veterans. So it was meaningful for me when I was asked to be a co-chair of the National Guard and Veterans Affairs Caucus. And I'm a member of the NCSL Military Affairs Task Force, along with Representative Stone. So we will travel somewhere this year to go to a conference or two to meet our national counterparts. And one other person who has not introduced
Oh,
herself, our
Great call.
committee assistant.
Hi, I'm Autumn. I'm committee assistant for this year. I moved to Vermont in 2019 to go to UVM, where I studied political science and linguistics, and I graduated in 2023. And since then, I've been working as the farm manager at a horse farm in Colchester, which was great fun, but decided I wanted to do something more political. So looking forward to working with all of you, and please let me know if there's anything I can do to make your lives easier this session.
Thank you. You likely have the most difficult job of our.
No, right? Yeah. So, all right, well, very happy we did that. Now we're gonna move on to the first order of business pertaining to a bill. We have representatives from here to discuss a charter request.
Yes.
Gentlemen, please join us. Pull up an extra chair.
And I think for folks who are following along, there should be some information on our webpage, on the Government Operations and Military Affairs webpage that will tell us who the folks are who are testifying for us and if they have brought in any information for us. And I don't know if everybody else's computer is defaulting to last session, but mine.
You gotta update, yeah, you gotta update your link.
Oh.
You just gotta update your link. Yeah. Anyway, gentlemen, welcome. Please introduce yourselves to the committee. And then we'll just do a quick loop to say who we are. And then we will speak to H10.
All right, good morning, folks. My name is Teddy Wozniak, member from Berry City.
My name is Michael Booten. I'm also from Berry City.
All right. And for a quick roundtable of introductions, Representative Matt Byron for Jens, Addison 3.
Representative Lisa Hango, Berkshire, Franklin 5.
Representative Lucy Boyden, Memorial 3, Cambridge, and Water.
Sandy Pencil, represented from Bennington, Rutland, Dorset, Danby, Mount Tabor, Land Grove, and Peru.
Michael Morgan, live in Milton, represent all Grand Isle County and West Milton.
Bob Hooper. For
Gail Coppin, live in Cavendish, represent Windsor 3, Windsor 2.
Mary Catherine Stone, Chittenden 14, Burlington.
Jay Hooper, I represent every town in Vermont, but the 5 towns of Brookfield, Braintree, Randolph, Granville, and Roxbury.
Kate Nugent, one of Jay Hooper's towns, South Burlington.
Thank you all. So it's I was on, Michael was a long time member of the Berry City Council. I resigned from the Berry City Council. So we are 2 of the folks who voted to pass these charter changes on the Berry City Council. And it basically just establishes the first half of the bill changes the date of our annual town meeting to the 2nd Tuesday in May, which the city of Berry has done for the past 2 years. And so rather than voting to move it every year, we would like the charter to just reflect when we want to hold town meeting. Also separates the office of the clerk and treasurer. As of right now, we have 1 elected individual that serves as clerk and treasurer. And the city would like to move to an elected clerk, as that makes sense, as they run our elections and should be a representative of the people. But as the city has grown, the bureaucracy of the city has grown, we feel that we should have a full-time appointed treasurer that has more of a background in that kind of work. And then there is just some language cleanup, removing redundancies, as we no longer control the school district. So we do not call school district meetings or appoint school commissioners, and Michael is the chair of our school board.
And I would say as a chair of the school board in our district, you should probably change it.
And that's the bill.
So I guess my first question is town meeting for your municipality being 2nd Tuesday of May is later than most.
Correct, but it's not, it's similar to Berrytown. Berrytown does theirs in May as well. Along with what we have in the bill, and there needs to be some amendments made to it, which I did forward to, I think I forwarded it to you, Matt, is that correct? Pretty sure I did.
If you forwarded it to me, I've not seen it yet, but I'll look.
Oh, okay. That's fine. But there's just some cleanup language that's needed regarding the changing the date to May, which if I haven't forwarded to you, I will send it to you.
Yeah, there was further, we basically found more language in the charter that references the 2nd Tuesday in March.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So there will just be an amendment to do the same thing that we're doing here.
It's just a universe of the same thing.
Yes, yeah, Control F.
I just expand on that. Why? What is your, just curious why y'all
Sure,
are
so-
gonna do that? Why May is more important to you than March?
So it's, the city manager definitely supported it because it helps with budgeting for the municipality.
Okay,
It also lets the city manager know what's happening in the legislature as well.
okay.
Which
But
which became more important post flooding.
correct.
Because how we allocate our funding to our other city services is very dependent on what kind of help comes from the state and federal.
You're trying to march closer to the end of fiscal year, in other words.
Correct.
Yeah.
Based on the state calendar
Yeah.
fiscal year.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Quick question for you, school board chair, did that pose any problems this past year or challenges because budgets were defeated and you were getting really close to that July 1st fiscal year deadline?
So I was the chair of Barry BUSD school district. And we had a very challenging year with our budget. It had nothing to do with this budget or this change. I will say that it was beneficial for us to be able to share the expenses in May, and we had to revote it. But this charter change will have no effect on the school district.
I think I was just more curious, thank you, about the timing of this meeting because it was so late. Because I know there were some districts that were really concerned with hiring and they didn't have a budget passed and their town meeting was in May.
Yeah, the BUSD will continue to have their vote on March and.
Oh, perfect.
Meeting day. This is only for the municipality.
Thank you.
And I will just add too, that we saw significant voter participation increase.
Yeah.
In last year when we
really?
moved to May.
Yeah.
It was the highest it's been in over a decade.
Interesting. Representative Boyd.
That connects to my question. Do you know what the vote count was?
It was over
for the
1,500.
Offhand, I don't know, but it was higher than previous town meetings.
If you could provide that to this committee as well as any supporting documents that you may have emailed to our committee assistant, Autumn, that would be great.
You're talking about the vote count on the charter change.
Yeah, because
Yes.
usually just like, as members of our committee, when we do, the floor report eventually, we like to include that.
Oh, yeah, just point of clarification, are you asking for the votes by which the charter change passed or the total amount of votes passed?
Both.
Of which it has.
Okay, the vote on these charter.
So like 1,000.
Yeah, we can get there.
And then we can do the math from there.
Figure out the delta. We're pretty good at that. Yeah.
We can send you the results of the.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the deadline for this, for bill submissions?
End of the month.
So people who are listening, that question was what the deadline is for us to submit new bills
Right.
for the legislative process. And it is the end of January for us to get it in. So if anybody has bill ideas, that's really important to know, to
And for-
let your legislators know that.
And for new members, next year it's December 2nd. Remember that.
Yes,
Yeah,
your
second half,
biennium
quick.
is always much earlier. And any supporting documents that you wish us to have, if anybody is listening, and you would like to submit something in writing or to corroborate your testimony with a written testimony, please send to our committee assistant Autumn, and she will post it on our webpage.
I think what we'll do too for supporting documents, we'll have our city manager write the committee a letter. Just because he'll have more facts and figures available at his fingertips to demonstrate why it makes good
Thank you.
sense for the city to do this, yeah.
And then anybody from the general public who's looking at our webpage can access those documents and read them for themselves. So that's pretty helpful.
Would you like a comparison of the voter turnout from years prior?
If you feel that you would like to include that as supporting evidence for moving the date to May, sure, that would be helpful.
That's pictures of people not freezing.
Yeah, it does also make door knocking for town meeting quite a bit more
Yes.
enjoyable in April as opposed to January.
Ancillary benefits.
Tangential, yeah. It's all interconnected.
Any other questions from the table? Any other members? Questions for the members? No.
I'm curious, sorry, are you guys, have you any interest in carrying the torch for former Rep. Williams on the one-stop shop for grants, that website? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, yes, I know,
Did it?
Representative Nugent has been talking about that bill as well. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry if I'm just not
No worries.
paying attention. I support it. Yeah, thanks.
All right, yeah, no, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for being nimble as we juggled, fire alarms, evacuations, curveballs this morning. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Of course, and before Chair Kornheiser yells at me, I'm going to run back to reading the means. We're talking about your bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
And I see council's here. You have anything to add, sir? No? Okay.
So well executed that your speech was stuck.
If you want me to recite the statute from memory about annual meetings and the default date and all the consequences of moving to May, there's really only one.
What is it? I mean,
It's that if they adopt a charter change, which happens in Berrytown all the time, you will not get it until the next legislative session. And that means that if it's going to be adopted, typically it's a year after it has been passed by the community before the charter change goes into effect.
sad.
That 2 extra months can have an effect on immediate passage of charters, which do not have a deadline for introduction because of town meeting after the introduction.
So that's very.
That is why that house rule exists.
Right.
Yes.
That's right.
That's a constitutional consequence? No?
Do you have anything
House
to
rules.
say in response?
Our house rules, not Senate rules.
I mean, I can tell you that I'm trying to think in past whether or not a charter change had passed within the same year. So I don't know if it's really that consequential. I'm nearly positive that it doesn't always pass in that year. When is crossover?
March.
Crossover is typically the week after town
Yeah.
meeting break.
If,
The consequence there is just that Senate rules has to approve the release of the charter after it passes the House before it can go to the Senate. And I am only aware of one charter in my time that fell in those meetings in the Senate committee for the session.
so what is part of the letter that Nicholas provides, the city manager, he'll address that issue or concern. But as a city councilor of 14 years, I don't see that as a problem. Government moves slow. I think most people are aware of that.
That is a component we're definitely gonna have to have a larger conversation on.
How slow our government?
Yes, yeah.
So,
Okay,
yeah, just make your city manager aware of the fact that we would like to have a conversation with him about that deep concern.
so you want Nicholas to come in and testify?
At some point, yes, the letter would be nice first, though.
And bring a Roman candle. This legislature is gonna be fireworks. Don't.
Thank you for the footnote, Representative.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Just make sure the Roman candle is less than $15 per member.
Especially if it was gifted to a special guest.
In kind.
That's true.
Okay, well, that is our first bill introduction, folks. Thank you.
What was the bill number?
That is H10.
H10.
Yes, and if you go on the committee page, or if you're going hard copy, H10, yes.
So we're taking more on that. We're not ready to move on that. You're taking.
How was it? Yeah, no, it's just, we're just poking at
Yeah.
a poke. Yep. And now,
Next.
if there's no other questions on this, we could move on to, that was the question, Representative.
Sure. Were we going to discuss just procedures at all? Like how to find our meetings and that type of thing? Are we all good with that?
No, I mean, we could definitely make that a component of this conversation. I think that's a
Okay.
good sort of like 101. I was thinking that all of that was gonna integrate into the, the policy pop bubble and, of this. So if you want to run through that, feel free.
So, most of you have been here, but for those of you who have not been with us before, we are pretty much electronic. So, everything you need to find is going to be on our webpage or the General Assembly, website. And you will see our agenda, and this is for, people viewing back home as well. I often get questions. The agenda is a suggested agenda for the week. It's typically prepared the week prior, towards the end of the week for the following week. But you'll see suggested meeting times. Things will come up where individuals will not be able to join us at those meeting times. So please check back frequently to look at our agenda to see if it has changed. But it will list what times the House floor is and what bills we're going to be listening to for introduction, who's coming in, and if we're having presentations by various organizations or agencies, that will also be on our agenda. Sometimes without warning, we will have to change the agenda, and committee members will be notified of that by our committee assistant via electronic means, or us tracking you down in the hallway if you're not always glued to your phone or your computer. Another thing I wanted to mention about that is most typically bill votes, if they are warned on our agenda, they are there for 24 hours at least.
Yes, the vote,
The
yes.
vote, so it will say H10 vote. And we should know that at least 24 hours in advance, and the public should know that as well. So we try to arrange those when we know we have all of our committee members here. And we try to give public notice when we are taking a vote to vote a bill out of our committee. Is there anything I have missed and questions?
Can
Sandy?
can you remind me on how to go to find the agenda?
Yes.
I mean, I was so tired of this morning. This morning was crazy.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's so much to catch up on.
It is.
That's why we came into this week a little slow. Some committees were doing a little bit more of a rapid onboard.
And clearly I still have not mastered that because I'm still getting last year's agenda, so I have not updated mine.
What you gotta do is,
I know
it's just that it's the
delete the-
link, because it's still hold stack, because it's all archived. So what I did actually was, all of my shortcuts through all the
Yes.
committees, right?
Yes.
I literally just blew them all up and started.
Okay.
It's like trying to dance around and reassign it is actually more work than just deleting it.
Okay.
Creating the link.
Sounds
for the
good.
shortcut.
But the public doesn't have to do that because you can go right to the General Assembly website and click on committees and click on House Committee, Government Operations and Military Affairs. And you will come to our committee webpage immediately, and you can click on the agenda and also supporting documents. Any supporting documents that we have, the general public will have as well. Don't do a whole lot with paper in this committee.
Vice Chair Hangovers are in.
I wish. I can only aspire to be that good at procedure and knowledge of procedure.
There is a lot of technical.
We appreciate you.
We have very, very, we have a great website. We have a great, but it's very broad. It is deep. It takes a long time to figure out how to navigate it and find everything from, just the reports and studies that get referenced to committees. That's like a whole nother section. So it does take a long time to get yourself integrated and, very astute to how to navigate it. It does take some time. So don't feel like it's you're not alone on an island with trying to catch up with this stuff when you first get in here. Let's put it that way.
The worst part is when a policy is changing by the half hour increment and you're like, where is the existing document?
And I would really recommend checking and refreshing your page frequently when that's
Yeah,
happening.
good call, yeah.
And if our committee assistant gets a report submitted and posts it, it would be really helpful to send us an email and say, the report from such and such group has been posted to the committee page now.
And-
Because often you'll get reports that are due every year or every 2 years, and we have no idea that they've been received.
So with that, what I did was, so we had, because many reports and due dates are in December, right? So as we started a new biennium with new folks, those reports were actually on the old homepage that you were just looking at. So I was just working with Autumn yesterday with some of the stuff that we were issued
Okay, good.
on the 15th or the 25th, and to carry them over onto our page now, because I kind of caught that the other day where I was like, oh, these are relevant to the work we're doing in the next 2 years,
Right.
but they hit the inbox over here with different titles and roles. So the previous chair and I were the ones receiving those emails.
Right. Who did
See where I'm
mention that
going
to
with
me.
this? Yes. So I'm in the process of mining all of those out of my archives and putting them there. So, but a lot of those reports for the newer members especially will let you know when it's relevant. Don't think you need to catch up on that stuff right now. There's a lot going on in your world as new members. So a few more minutes.
Also,
Yes,
don't hesitate to ask questions, please. The more questions you ask, the more knowledge you're gonna have, and that's important. Knowledge is everything, because you can't know about it unless you know about it.
I'm with reports is I have posted a lot of reports in the past couple of days.
Thank you.
I
And
won't send you an email for every.
we'll look
what I
at,
posted in the past.
we'll look at the ones you've posted, and then going forward, if you get a new one, you could email us. That would be really helpful.
Data verbal, whatever. We'll all
Yes.
communicate.
Yep. Group emails work really well for this committee. And if you want to email the whole committee, all you have to do is type in on the 2 line house_government, and it should come up with our committee name, and all of our email addresses should be connected to that if you want to email the whole committee. And that goes for folks outside of this room as well, can do that. And all of our email addresses are found on our committee webpage as well. I feel like there's something else I was going to say. Do you have anything else to add?
I mean, not on the procedural sort of like operational stuff. I think that pretty much covered it. So I just want to continue for a few more minutes before we break for lunch, just talking, continuing to go around the table a little bit on the priorities. Just to close the loop on that. Because you and I, Representative Hango and I both have a meeting with Ledge Council and the teams just to discuss some operational structures for the session with Tucker and his team, some of the other chairs and vice chairs. And then for the agenda, we'll be back a little bit later to talk to Representative Hendrick about H22 you're doing. Yeah, about H22. And that one seems to be a little bit denser. But with that, I want to spend the next like 10, 15 minutes just chatting a little bit more about priorities. So.
Priorities, speaking of priorities, do we have any breath mints in this room? It's important.
Shut the table.
And that's for others.
Yes, and please just remember to raise your hand to be called upon. Representative Boyden.
I'm happy to continue on priorities. I've been working with Representative Waters Evans on a government accountability bill. Members from last year will remember it didn't quite make it to the finish line, so we've tweaked it. And it's basically, we're just creating a subcommittee, a group of people to look back on bills that have been passed and put into law to look at what their goals were and make sure that the agencies that we're directing to do the work are doing them and achieving what we were hoping for when it was originally a bill. So we're working on that. Additionally, with Representative Garofano, Also working on some housekeeping for the Department of Liquor and Lottery on alcohol and potentially some cannabis work as well.
So those, just so the new members know, we kind of share work here. We're gonna work in teams. And so as vice chair, last biennium, Representative Boyden as clerk. She worked with me. I handled most of the devices, so I handled all of the devices. With the Department of Liquor and Lottery, sports wagering and cannabis. She helped me primarily on the liquor and lottery stuff. And is now gonna help me out with the cannabis as well. So that's just sort of how that like nexus was created with that. And so the newer members will work into this over the next week or two, but you'll be partnered with a more veteran member. And that'll be policy specific. It's not gonna be like a permanent thing, right? It's just gonna be sort of as we take on different bills and projects. So just a little operational footnote there.
I think I've already spoken with Representative Morgan about following some of the military bills. And I have an intern who's from Norwich University, who's a military cadet. And he is quite interested in following them as well. So I will direct him your way. And maybe if you take on one of the new members as your helper in this endeavor, we can actually keep track of all of the bills circulating. I've got a list going already,
Is that a tasker, Madam Vice Chair?
possibly.
Sense one coming.
That's the build-in.
That's right. Sensing that.
All right, do we want to like just go around the table here, or do we just kind of want to fire off one at a time?
I'm reading it.
Representative,
I'll have to, we're gonna work on that.
yes, we are gonna work
We
on that.
will.
You're gonna tell me. Subject line, a crisis in the Department of Corrections. Cooper, what's going on?
Subject line, okay, hold on.
Yes, some of us received paper copies of
Yeah.
that earlier this morning.
What's it about?
I have not had the
Staffing
opportunity yet
issues.
to read it.
Staffing issues,
I got an idea though. He's
okay,
probably gonna know, right? About it? You know what this is?
hold the ideas for later. We're just talking, we're talking legislative priorities right now, we'll do ideas later.
And we will invite anyone who takes the time to write to us. We will engage them. We will invite them to engage with us in any way, shape or form. So that definitely is on our list.
So, and some folks might have seen an article that came out recently about payouts for people, for employees who are on suspension during investigations in various departments and agencies. And there was the dollar amount that was applicable to the Department of Corrections was notably higher than the other aspects of government. So that is during our sort of government accountability conversations and just general operations of these larger buckets of government that kind of fall into our oversight. All of these things are going to link together into a lot of that work. So yeah, definitely read through the email. We got handed a couple of copies. If you want to independently have a conversation, I'm sure Steve Howard would love to talk to you.
He's in the building today.
I'm gonna do a lot of the independent conversations right on the record this session.
Then we'll bring Steve Howard in. Representative Stone.
Expanding voting access to overseas military voters.
Yeah, no, so there, yeah, we're gonna do a miscellaneous elections bill, and I figured that was gonna be part of the conversation.
We talked about adding it at one point in time.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit last year.
I think it was
23? Yeah.
January 23. But didn't get very far with it. Mhm.
Yeah, that one's interesting where when you start talking about a specific sort of like, God, I so don't want to get granular right now. The way that those ballots are delivered and remitted are far different than online voting. So when we started talking about that, it triggered
Right, it's a lot of like.
the online voting concerns,
misinformation.
which are not the same as that. And that was sort of, it really tainted the conversation. I think it's the nicest way of putting it, very early. It made it difficult to navigate. We will have a conversation about that again this year.
And I remember there was a timeline issue with the US mail.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, that was a whole different thing. Yeah, yeah.
But
Linked
it
to but
pertained
yes,
to
yes.
overseas and the timing of the primary as well, the primary election.
I have somebody I know who sits on the board for the US Postal Service. It's appointed by the president, and she has a special interest in this, and I'm sure we could bring her in to testify if and when that time comes.
Thank you.
The time will come.
That is a really important thing that you just brought up. If anyone who wants to be a witness to testify, whether electronically or in person, please tell us. Please tell Autumn, Matt, and myself, because it's really important that a diverse number of voices are heard.
So excuse me,
Please, yes.
they currently get their ballot. If the clerk has their email address, they currently get their ballot emailed to them. Problem is that there's no way to email it back.
Right, that's.
And that was the whole
different system.
conversation, right? Where,
Yes.
so the conversation was around, it's
It's
like a
about voter
PDF.
identification and everything.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what the policy conversation around it, which seemed like the most viable path, was you remit it via email as a PDF. So it's a locked document. It's not going
Can't be
through a
changed.
server.
Right.
And if anybody's trying to like change an election, they're not gonna be snagging one vote at a time out of people's emails.
Right, and it's
To
not. the
like
clerk.
mask it and replicate it and then like rehack the email to remit, you know what I mean? That's a lot of work for one capture, in my humble opinion. I'm sure opinions vary, but
I'll
please, yeah, it's
continue.
yours.
I would really like to see the mandate for absentee ballots to be sent to all voters done away with. I think it's a huge waste of money.
So you just what we do,
If
the
you want an
universal mail
absentee
out.
ballot, you can request one and your clerk can send one, but to send out an absentee ballot for every voter
Mhm.
is a huge waste of tax dollars, huge waste. Because so many people throw them away, they don't bring them to the polling place. Then you waste all this time having to fill out an affidavit that they either didn't receive it or they got it, but they didn't. Or if they've moved, then you gotta contact the previous town clerk to where, did they vote in your town? There's so much time of a clerk's position on election day to track down these ballots. That if you want an absentee ballot, get an absentee ballot. We're doing too much hand holding to the voter. I mean, they're all adults. If you want to vote, you can certainly have plenty of time to get an absentee ballot, but being forced to ballot is not a good thing.
One of the reasons I wanted to have a former clerk on this committee was to get that from perspective.
Now, we all balked at same day voter, but that really has diminished. I mean, that is really, in the first couple of years, it was tough, but this whole ballot thing, especially this last general election, with the amount of turnout there was. I mean, my little town of Dorset with 1,700 voters, we had over 350 affidavits, tied up the lines, people they did.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy.
We are gonna do a lot of work on a miscellaneous elections bill.
Oh,
So we're gonna see Dave probably.
Perhaps.
But to your point, that's a bad way to pick up an election vote. It's a great way to pick up an undermining of the election process. So depending on what your objective is.
Because somebody could throw that ballot out at the post office garbage and anybody else could pick it up. Somebody who doesn't vote, doesn't care to vote, whatever.
Never thought of that.
Just throw it away. Anybody can walk through the
That's
post
valid.
office and pick it up, fill it out, mail it in. We
It's a
wouldn't have-
recycle bin, someone grabs it.
We don't, this is what really bothers me too, and well, I mean, I could go on about elections, but you have to have an ID to buy alcohol, you have to have an ID to get your driver's license, multiple identifications to get your driver's license. you don't have to have an identification to vote in Vermont.
Mhm.
And so many of my constituents are come from out of staters that they've moved into our town. They're astonished. They come in with their driver's license ready to show you a picture ID of who they are. We don't require it. And it's, I mean, if you want to tighten up election law, let's require ID. And then you would eliminate any possible voter fraud. If you have a voter ID.
Heard. Representative Stone.
Maybe this is wild, but I always think about modernizing things and bringing us into the current year. And Amber McReynolds, who sits on the USPS Board of Governors, the person I just mentioned, she changed ballot access in Denver, and they're using it in Washington DC as well. Instead of like collecting signatures, they do it on a secure electronic system where you collect signatures that way, and therefore people aren't having to decipher people's handwriting, et cetera, and it's very secure and whatnot. I don't think Vermont is ready for like a statewide thing, but just kind of like looking into it and seeing maybe if we could bring it into a pilot, as a pilot or whatever. It was just something interesting I learned about when I went out to Denver to study election science reform stuff, so.
I mean, that's like the
Conversation to,
you know, that's the interesting thing about election law. That's why I wanted Representative Waters Evans to go to the meetings. And why I was very enthused to participate over the summer, because it's like, it's so very state by state. It so varies county by county. We have virtually no county government here, right? So just seeing the scope and range, how people do it differently, those conversations with outside our little bubble, right? I mean, we're 645,000 people, right? We're like the size of a county in some states. So the capacity, bandwidth, and execution capabilities, it's so varied. And that's like the fascinating thing about researching.
and there are a lot of people who are interested in that, particularly people who are from the disability rights community, because it helps improve access for those who may have like physical impairments that impact their ability to actually use a pen and paper. So that was another interesting piece. that I learned about.
Yes, I like that.
Shut it off. Sorry, it's our group.
You know, I understand what it is.
But
Let's unding the ding. Yeah.
when we walk in the morning, really
Yeah.
good idea when you're taking your coat
I thought I
off to
had it
shut
on.
your phone
Yeah, it's all good. It's all
off.
good. Just a little committee housekeeping.
That's how I remember to
Little
do it.
committee housekeeping. It's like when I turn my hot mic switch on in the morning. And I'll turn it off slowly.
Yeah. Like when in your mind, you
Yeah,
know,
it's a game, it's a brain game. I play with
Microchip.
myself. I shut my chef off.
100% successful.
Turn my chair on so far.
I turn my sweat.
Don't jinx me. All right, with
Can I
that,
say one thing?
please, yes.
To go off of what Representative Stone was saying, Representative Priestley and I actually introduced a bill to allow electronic signatures at the beginning of 2023. That'll be to further have that conversation.
And there are tech companies who said that they would be willing to like,
Yeah, it's like it feels like an abstract idea of a lot of different ways to keep privacy, make sure it's not breached and.
but they're doing it in DC, so we have really good.
As the resident deaf person, speak up, don't mumble.
I'm glad you said that without Representative Waters Evans here.
Yeah,
His voice tends to carry.
Her voice?
Yes.
Well, actually, I was worried about you, because you could go off the edge sometimes, but I'm having trouble hearing you at all today, so
Yeah,
keep up the good
we're
work.
working on it. Yeah, great your voice.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah, you dream
Yeah, you
better in this one.
Carrie.
Representative Nugent, the table is yours.
As far as, priorities this session, I'm really excited to work on the grants bill and try to help small governments and nonprofits get the funding sooner and more efficiently than they have been, so that we can keep doing the work of government that happens with. And I guess like overarching theme, one of my big lenses that I try to bring to everything that I think is important is just looking at our long-term costs versus short-term gain, and how sometimes decisions, if you look at them with a longer lens, become more cost-effective. And I think it's important to think about ways that we can structure government so that that's
It
easier
feels to me like we can say every time.
every time.
Raise your hand.
Yeah.
Like me.
Representative Hooper,
The younger.
younger.
I'm gonna work on that. I promise. I'm sorry.
No, we're working hard together.
It's great.
I know, it's
It's all a learning experience for all of us.
but it's like, yeah, it's important for me to respect. Planning office. Do we have a conversation? Are you doing a bill like that too?
Like planners,
Stringing a planning office back,
Oh, like.
one that tracks,
PCs or, I'm sorry, what do you?
like a planning, like Vermont State Planning Office is
Mhm.
what that would be, basically
I think that's a good idea.
tasked with tracking policy. On an
Or the
annual
planning
basis.
community.
Government accountability.
Yeah, well,
There used to be one, I think, and then it.
I know there used to be one, and I think Howard Dean got rid of it. I don't have a clue why, but we should explore.
I will let our resident
To
government oversight.
preview the government accountability bill that we're working on right now, we have the state auditor involved to collaborate with certain agencies. We're kind of looking at it as a pilot.
Are you talking about land use though?
No.
No, I'm saying like-
That's what I was saying. I was like RPCs, so like. we're talking
Think
about-
about it like this, if the state legislature had a town clerk, that's what the planning office is, I think. Anyway, I'll let you guys go.
Find out more about it
And then,
and formulate the idea and bring it back.
All right. BL, you got any for us? Or, excuse me, representative. Going to all of a sudden,
Yeah.
thinking we're offline.
No, I don't have anything new to add. Most of what I was looking at is been covered with, with the veterans benefits and taxation. We'll go southern route and veterans healthcare. Getting it more accessible because it's not just the retirees, it's those that are. I know soldiers that did 4 years that said, I can't do this again. And they're still struggling. And they need our support as well. They joined the Vermont Guard and we need to look out for them. I have, just trying to make it easier for them.
Nope, and that's, we're fortunate to have two trustees from the Veterans Home here, Senator Sanders' office is very active in those conversations. Bring in someone from that office to talk to us about what they're doing federally. Because the brunt of those dollars in governance is federal. We don't have as big of a reach into that within the General Assembly as some people think. So communicating the needs, being the conduit to the federal delegation is a big part of our job. So, yes.
But one of the problems we have with where veterans leave the state because their retirement's being taxed.
Right.
So they leave the state. I have a gentleman who served with me in Iraq that is now in South Carolina. And South Carolina tells them to deal with Vermont because you were a Vermont Guard.
Ooh, okay.
And he is having trouble with his healthcare. He's suffering from burn pit exposure. But he's being bounced from agency to agency and not getting the support he needs.
The VA is not helping him?
The VA here in Vermont referred him to South Carolina. South Carolina says, no, it's not our problem because you were from Vermont. They keep going back round and round in circles.
I would have him contact his congressional delegation from South Carolina. They should be all over that.
I
Right on the
recommended that.
Tito, because that's, David, because, yeah, 100%.
I'd like to interject a comment. VL, please, Representative, please have him first sign up on the burn pit registry.
Yes.
And secondly, we can get him in contact with our partners at the Vermont National Guard General Knight is an excellent partner to us and has been advocating for issues like this for years. But he's been working very closely with us to advocate for more access to healthcare for veterans. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that, he's on the National Guard Bureau and he's in a leadership position. I can't recall which position.
General Knight?
Yeah.
For having to do with healthcare?
No, just in general.
Oh, he's
He sits
the
on a.
co-chair of the,
He's on so many of those.
Uh,
plans. I
Yes.
can't keep him straight.
with Andra Berry. It's a diversity initiative that the Guard's doing. He's a co-chair.
He's also involved in, at the national level,
That's-
involved in
it's that.
any conversation that has to do with Vermont veterans.
Well, the
And
54 agents general get together
yes.
several times a
And
year.
he's- I think he served as whatever the equivalent of director of that.
Yes,
would
no,
have been.
he got elevated to a leadership role.
But-
One of those very broadly impactful analysts, I can't remember the acronym of.
And he will be in the building
See him
frequently.
often.
So we can engage him in informal conversation as well as his assistant, General Harder and Harder.
Representative Morgan.
Yes, it's here. Just to expand a little bit, again, for everybody's edification, is, that's a big word for early in the day. Is,
For a free lunch.
yeah, is, the VA here, as a side note, as a user, heavy user of that system, me, is excellent. Because I talk with peers throughout the country, either when they were my either classmates or people in classes near me at the Air Force Academy, did careers in the military, or even a stint in the military and then got out. And many of us that have retired, they utilize their VA systems throughout the country. Granted, it is a national entity, but I find it does vary from state to state. And the good news is I'm here to tell you that for the most part, White River and the CBOC in Burlington are outstanding. The CBOC, I remember community-based something clinic.
Yes.
Community-based outreach clinic, outpatient, I don't know. But anyway, it's Lakeside Avenue, Burlington. I've had my personal experience is nothing but excellent care from those folks and those agencies. And I think for the most part, talking with peers that have retired from the Guard or that are here that are active duty retirees feel the same. So we're very fortunate here. And, but they do vary from state to state, because I talk to people in other states saying, oh, it's a horrid experience. So that's always something at the national level that can be continued to be improved upon. But I think the word you can get to your constituents is that for the most part, and it's not a perfect system, nothing is it's probably one of the best in the country here.
Yeah,
Burns is
I would like to add to that.
He pushed the meter. I will
That is
give his credit. He's done a
One
lot
of the
with it.
problems I had was the VA here in Vermont, in White River especially, I deal with them all the time. They're part of the reason I'm still around. And they're excellent to us. They really, I've run into veterans from Maine and New York that intentionally come to the White River because it's better. But, you know, like I said, he's down in South Carolina and they're not as helpful.
Yeah,
You know,
I would definitely
in
have. him reach
Vermont,
out
we're
to the
fortunate that we have one of the best, I think, in the country.
I'd just like to extend it a little bit further too, the Vermont Veterans Home. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but it is a phenomenal institution, part of the state. And it is not, the first time I ever went there was when I was trying to get my husband in there, and I thought it was gonna smell like a nursing home, but there's no disinfectant smell. This place is spotless. The nursing staff is by far just incredible. You got the best care for 5 weeks. But I would encourage you, if you're ever in the Bennington area, please stop in and take a tour, or just, go to the front desk.
I'm actually,
Because
let me jump in. I was gonna close here and I think I might know where you're going with this, Representative.
we went out and smelled the pot. We should consider the tour there too.
Yes.
literally where I was going. So we have talked about a veterans home tour since our first year.
Right.
Representative Hango,
And then it got derailed by COVID.
correct?
Reason I say.
We were,
When we get into a money crunch and we're probably heading for one. The
I'm pretty sure we're
one
in
of the
one.
places where we start talking about privatization first. And like Woodside, where they did basically that, it's hard to bring these things back to a quality level once they're gone.
so actually, if I could ask that the two members who are trustees maybe start the communication with the folks down there, trying to target a date, and then we can just figure out some details about transportation, stuff like that, because I think it would be very important for us to go and do that. It has been a desire of ours to try and orchestrate this for years now, so I'd love to see that come to fruition this
I should
session.
have a board meeting every 2 months is probably would be a good time to do it. Got a board meeting to.
What are your board meeting
Every month
days?
is-
Yeah,
What
that's
day of the
scheduled.
week do you meet?
It's a Wednesday.
Usually, but.
Because I would like to do it on a day where it is formal legislative business.
And
So if like you're doing a Wednesday like that, perhaps we can go down for a tour and say hi to that.
We can arrange it any day.
Our next
my-
meeting is February 12th.
my suggestion would be kind of at the tail end of cold and flu season, because the Melissa Jackson, the executive director in the past, has been very explicit. She does not want the vets exposed to any
Sure.
illness.
I'm thinking like in April perhaps,
April
because
9th.
because
the
then, yeah, maybe chat with them about that, because then it's, I don't want to say less weather curveballs, but that's always been a concern too. It's such a
Yes.
long drive.
Yeah.
That trying to target a date and then just keeping our fingers crossed that we don't have a nor'easter roll through.
We've got the middle of the biennium.
Yeah.
And we're still the committee until years.
Yeah.
So,
Then go down to the zone.
no, sure. Yeah. But I think there's a value to doing it during this session because we're working on the policy now. So, so I will let the two of you sort of chit chat on that and begin orchestrating your contacts there. And with that, we are at 5 minutes of 12. Folks, that was our first formal meeting. Thank you very much. That was productive.